Hi guys, Andy here. So I've been using the LG G5 for probably about 10 days now, and I thought it was time to let you know my thoughts. Being a pretty big fan of the G3 and the G4, I was quite looking forward to trying the G5. I realise I'm quite late to the party. It's been out for around 4 months now, I guess. But actually when I had the opportunity for clove.co.uk to send me the device to try, I jumped on it. And here it is. So thank you to Clove for that. Go and have a look at their website if you haven't before. So G5 is quite different design-wise to the previous models. It's gone quite rounded. I do like the design. I do like the roundedness. You see the sort of the rounded edge on the top of the screen there, perhaps, and just generally how rounded it is all round. The volume buttons, quite a big design change, have moved from the back around the power button, which still is on the back, to the side, and I do find actually they're a little bit too flush in some ways. It can be a little bit tricky sometimes. I mean, I can feel that they're obviously, but not as easy to tell perhaps as other devices. There's a single speaker in the base of the phone, not massively loud when I measured it with my decibel meter, but actually it sounds pretty good. It's a good rounded sound, and when I'm listening to my podcast, it does sound very good. I'm quite happy with it. The lack of the volume buttons on the back does mean sometimes I find it quite hard to locate the fingerprint sensor, and quite often when you're sort of feeling around for it, you feel a vibration like you missed it, and there we go, and it unlocks. It's pretty quick as unlocks go. I tested it against the Note 5 and the Nexus 6P, and the 6P was clearly faster. The Note 5 was arguably only just faster. Strangely though, I found that it seemed to have got worse over time, and maybe it's just like, I'm trying to use it when I'm at the gym and perhaps my fingers are a bit sweaty and that might interfere with it, but it's not uncommon that, now it's working perfectly, apart from the first vibration when I'm finding, but then when I lift and press it's working fine. But I have found that I'd sort of find it, lift, press, still not, and it's not uncommon that I have to press like 3 times, find it, press and press again before it unlocks, and actually that became a bit of an annoyance for me, if I'm honest. So all around the design, I've not mentioned the modular aspect of it. So let's, I'm going to shut, I don't know if I need, see, there we go. There was one point I actually gave up trying to use the fingerprint sensor and I typed in my password. It was that bad. I don't quite know, I know when people moaned in my OnePlus 2 video, they're saying, I'm doing it wrong, or I don't know how to set it up. There's only really one way you can set up a fingerprint sensor, and that's just to keep tapping with different parts of your finger until it says you're done. So actually, I would like to hear other people's comments, especially G5 owners. Do they find it's always spot on, or do they have some issues with it? So the modular aspect, there's a little button at the bottom there. I'm going to press that in, and then slide out the base. Life's good when you play more. So there is the battery, which while we're on it is a let me just double check. I was about to say 2800, I think it is. Yes, it's a removable late-ion 2800 milliamp hour battery, but we'll come to that. It's going to say on the back. I know I'm looking at my notes. There it is. Look. You see that? 2800. Minimum 2700. Interesting. I don't think I've seen that before. Now, in theory, that snaps off, I think. But to be honest, I don't want to. Is that another? No. Do you know what? I'm not going to risk. I think that comes away. Anyway, but the idea being then, different things. You can see the kind of connectors on that side, which connect into there. The idea being you can slot different things in. Now I've seen there's a camera one, which has got extra battery on it as well, and it's got kind of a dedicated camera button and a zoomy wheel. And I think there's a speaker one. I'm not entirely sure what else to, and unfortunately I didn't get sent, or I wasn't able to try. Oopsie daisy. I wasn't able to try any of the different modules. But I guess I see this, well, it's a nice sort of a little addition, but it's not necessarily a reason to buy the phone, I would think. It's a bit like when you get a car and you do loads of mods to it. They always say, well, when you sell it, doesn't necessarily put value on it, but maybe it helps you sell the device because you can say, well, it's got this mod and that mod. I see that similar to here. It's not, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a reason to buy it, but it's a nice thing that you can then use if you wish. You might see it differently, that's fine. The hardware-wise, it's got a Qualcomm Snapdragon 820 chipset, a quad-core, not octa-core, quad-core 2 cores at 2.15 GHz Cryo CPU and 2 cores at 1.6 GHz Cryo CPU. The I'll punch my password in. The GPU is an Adreno 530. This particular device has 32 gig of storage and 4 gig of RAM. Sorry, there we go. And 4 gig of RAM, which all in all does give it the device decent power. So even though it's only got a quad-core CPU, I was still getting 5,300 on Geekbench, which actually of the phones I've tested is probably about second best. It beats my Note 5. So pretty impressive power-wise. Now you'll notice this here. Rotation is the app that I use to basically lock many apps in portrait mode. I don't want them, if I'm lying on the bed, I don't want it to switch to landscape. But it doesn't work too well on the LG software. I'll come to that shortly. There is a micro SD card slot in with the SIM tray slot at the side. The screen is a 5.3 inch 1440 by 2560 pixels screen, which gives about 554 pixels per inch. And generally, you've got to say it looks pretty good. So nice strong colors there, crisp text, fantastic. The downside being it only scores kind of the mid 400s on my light meter. To give some reference, my Note goes up over 800. My 6P is the high 500s, if not into the 600. In fact, this is one of the lowest scores I've ever got from a phone. So considering it's LG's top-end device, that really surprises me. And it's quite a big shame, because when I've used it outdoors in the bright sunlight, which actually, surprisingly, somehow in London we've had quite a bit of over the last week or two, there have been times it's been really hard to see. So to me, that's a very big drawback. It also has the always on screen, so you can see there the time and that I've got an email notification. I quite like that. I do like having it's only something that's come around in the last 6 months or so, perhaps, these always on screens. But very quickly, yeah, I do like just having my phone on the desk there. Don't know if you can actually see it on the video, but I can see the time nice and easy, and if I've got any notifications. What I did notice late at night, when that sat on my table next to me, there is a very slight glow to it, just enough that it kind of bugs me. Not that it would, when I've got my eyes closed, it's not bright enough for me to still see, but it just bugs me, and I turn it over, and when it covers up and it senses, there you go, do you see that went off? When it senses like it's in your pocket or whatever, it does turn off the always on screen. Obviously it's inoperable at this point. I can't do anything with it. So you don't worry about it sort of if it's in your pocket and is it going to touch something. That's fine. Let's move on to the camera, or really I should say cameras, because this device has 3 of them in all. Actually, we'll start with the front facing because that's the simple bit. It's an 8 megapixel f2.0 front facing camera. Generally, I would say it gave pretty good results. If I would probably go as far as saying very good results. I do like the odd selfie here and there, who doesn't? And it gives some nice, clear, crisp pictures with good colour. On the back, we have 2 different cameras. There's a 16 megapixel f1.8 and there's an 8 megapixel f2.4 wide angle. It also has laser autofocus like the previous LG G phones, G3 and the G4. I think both had laser autofocus. It is quite an interesting addition, having the wide angle lens. So here we are as normal. In fact, you can see the icons at the top there, if the camera will focus, like a single camera and the 3 cameras. If I tap single tree and 3 trees. If I tap on the 3 trees, it switches out. That's a pretty massive difference. So you see there, we just see the box and my Google. We tap that and we basically see, look at that, my entire desk. I didn't realise I was showing off my entire. Good job, it's relatively tidy. Yes, that is relatively tidy for me. It was actually quite handy. I did have to use it at some point where I think I was taking a photo of something at work actually, and when I was on this level, it just didn't quite fit. And sure, and if you tap that, boom. So actually, really quite handy. The camera app itself, pretty standard, I would say. I like that it's got the video button as well as the camera button on the same screen. You don't have to switch modes. When you do take a picture, you get a share option, and you can change between. So that's quite handy. Changing what you can share to, pretty good. And then generally all the usual bits and pieces like you might have, including slow-mo. So the camera app itself, yeah, pretty good. As you might have noticed, the shutter release pretty fast. Whoopsie daisy. All in all, I would say the pictures look pretty great. The focus with the laser focus is always spot on from what I've seen. It's got a nice, bright, vibrant colours. If we move on to the video, actually really impressive. When I did my G5 versus the Note 5 video comparison, I think it surprised a few people how good the G5 camera looked. But then, to be fair, LG, they do have a history of having great cameras, so we really shouldn't be that surprised that that it looks that good. I'm going to talk briefly about the software on the G5. I like some things, so you can change the button combination along the bottom. So for example, if you want to be able to bring down, sorry, you see at the bottom there, I've just added that notification button. So you can edit, I'm going to take that back out again because I don't actually want it. You can change what colour the bar is, but only white or black, so it's not, there's not huge options there. It'd be quite nice if there was some kind of colour picker. And then you can hide the home touch buttons at certain times. So there's bits like that are quite handy. The settings are what we've seen on LG before, which I've no problem with. It generally makes things quite easy to find what you're looking for. The brightness slider I find slightly odd, in that when auto brightness is on, for me, normally, I'm then sliding that to set the kind of overall brightness, but then still use auto brightness, please, if that makes sense. So if I generally want a bright screen, fine, but I turn on auto brightness, and even then, when it gets dark, it's still going to lower the brightness for me. But actually, what I found is it moves the slider, that's it doing its auto brightness. Now, I don't know if I can turn that towards the light. I don't know if we're going to be able to see. There you go. See that? See that? Whoa, there you go. That's lit all up to 78. So it seems like I don't particularly have any control of the overall brightness when I've turned on auto brightness. It's just going to do it itself. If I change it to something, it's then just going to override it depending on the brightness. Does that make sense? We can turn on and off the always on display, all the usual sort of things. So yeah, generally, now where is it? There is an option so you can set, it's going to be in general, I suppose. You can set what your home location, there we go, smart settings. So at home, turn Wi-Fi on, away from home, change to vibrate only and turn Wi-Fi off. You can have it do certain things when you plug earphones in. You can have it open a particular app, so like Amazon Music. I mean, I don't plug earphones in, I use Bluetooth. Although maybe it would work when they just connect, I'm not sure. So I like that those kind of things are, there we go, Bluetooth device is connected, I can have it open up. So let's do that. You can choose which Bluetooth item is. I'm sure that's my earphones, that's correct. Yeah, because that's my car. So that's, things like that, actually, they're pretty useful. Why not? I think there's other things you can make it do when you sort of come home. So I like those additions. You can also, now it's going to be the easiest way for me to, you can have the app drawer without, so I think we're going to need to find apps. There we go. Defaults. I press the home button. Now I can have the home with an app drawer. I can have just home, or I can have easy home. Now let me, for example, select just home. So I no longer have an app drawer. Oh, what was I doing? Oh, it's adding things to the home screen. I'm not a fan of that, so I'm going to go back to the home with an app drawer, and all of a sudden I've got my app drawer back. There is this easy home option. But I don't really like that either, so let's just go to that and let's say use it as default. There's your normal sort of option, really. It does have this thing where, so if I receive a text message, I get a pop-up of the text message, which is great, it's nice, boom, there it is, I can kind of scroll up and down, read it. But when I close that pop-up, I lose the notification as well. So if I'm not particularly, I don't want to read it right now, boom, and it's totally gone. I wonder if, I don't think I've been able to slide it away. So it's a little bit weird. Nice feature, but then strangely implemented in some ways. Also, I do find it kind of hard, and this might sound a little bit weird, find it hard to make folders. So if I drag something, you watch it work, see how I'm pretty much over it, but boing, it's gone to the side. That I can see now it's gone in. But it just seemed, I've used other launchers, like the Nexus launcher. See that? So it's not a massive issue, it was just slightly annoying. It does also have tap to wake, which generally I found to be very reliable. And here's one of your problems with the power button. When it's sat on a desk, you've got to lift your phone up. So generally, that was one of the more reliable tap to wakes that I think I've used. I also had some permissions issues. So we sort of mentioned Rotation Manager, so it won't even run now, but different apps that ask me for permission. So I installed Antutu, for example, and that needed to know a few different things permission-wise. It would pop up saying you're being blocked by an app that's using over-screen features or something like that, and it was just really odd. It wouldn't tell you what app you had to go through. You've got a massive big long list of all these apps that are on or off, and at one point I had to go through, turn them all off just to get an app to work, and I could then go and turn most of the permissions back on. It just seemed quite odd and quite an annoyance. We mentioned the battery, so I already have mentioned the battery, 2800 milliamp hours, removable. It has the USB Type-C charger, which therefore allows it to charge at 3 amps. So it's not even one thing that occurred to me is, so you had regular micro USB, and then Qualcomm come along and made this quick charge. Now this is just regular USB Type-C, so I wonder if Qualcomm or anyone else is going to make a quick charge version of Type-C, which is already very fast. Now, I mean, this goes from 25% to 76% in 30 minutes. That's 51% in 30 minutes. It charged all the way to full from 25% in an hour and 10. In fact, I did similar, I think from 13% in just over an hour and 10 on a portable battery using USB Type-C. So the charging rate is pretty immense. So if they do figure out some kind of quick charge option for Type-C, that's going to be ridiculous. Can you imagine? Let's just say it charges your phone full in 40 minutes. That changes the way you use you charge your phone, doesn't it? You don't have to leave it on overnight. You wake up, well, any point through the day, you plug it in for 40 minutes and boom, you're back up to full. Pretty impressive. There is no, and possibly because of the metal body, I assume it's metal body, there is no wireless charging. Well, actually, I do kind of miss. I quite like my wireless charging now, so that's a little bit of a shame. The overall battery use, not as epic as I found the G4 to be. But having said that, I could wake up in the morning, listen to podcasts for up to an hour and only drop 1%. That's not bad going. But I mean, let's take today. I've been to the gym this morning, so it is my heavier day. But it has given the battery quite a pounding. So look, it's saying 47%. I've only got, you see that, 2 hours and 44 left. So that was when I'm at the gym. Look, so I'm streaming Bluetooth music. I've got the screen coming on and off because I'm recording when I've done sets. I'm also cycling, streaming music, and recording my track. It's only about 15 minutes in total, but I'm using GPS and all that kind of thing to. And the battery plummeted. So I've only been going for about 4 hours and I've used over half. That's really bad. I guess it is what it is, but I wouldn't have said the battery was bad. I know that makes it sound horrific, but that's kind of what happens when I go to the gym in the morning. I do hammer the battery, and I have everything turned on. Any of these tips that people give, turn off Google Now, turn off your locations, don't use Bluetooth, turn off, I'm almost doing the opposite because I am using the phone to its maximum. So I wouldn't say it's as bad as it is. It looks terrible. I wouldn't say it's that bad. In fact, I've just finished my battery test, my sort of hour-long watching a video, reloading web pages, and the G5's come out top at the moment with 93%. Now, I've not done a huge amount of phones, because I keep changing how I do my battery test, but that still beats the S7 Edge by 1%. So, the battery is not poor by any means. So if I mention hackability, there looks to be some limited support on the XDA forums. The device can be unlocked. There appears to be a ROM or two. I don't think you're going to buy the LG G5 for its kind of hackability and ROM support. That's just not why you're going to get it. I couldn't see, for example, one of the CyanogenMod ROMs or anything like that. So, in conclusion, based on how I like the G3 and the G4, I've got to say I was a little disappointed. There's a lot of positives to this device. It's got a great camera. It's got a decent enough speaker. It's a lovely design. It's a very slick UI. Plenty of processing power. Modular could be handy. But poor screen brightness, a few software issues. For me, an unreliable fingerprint sensor. And it just knocks it off that kind of top tier that I would have expected from the G5. Possibly I'm being too hard on it, based on how much I liked the G3 and the G4. I mean, the G4 I actually bought. I thought it was going to be my daily driver, and unfortunately then I went to America and was able to buy a G5 and it got replaced within like about 4 days. But the fact that I liked it so much it was to be my daily driver, well, I definitely wanted it for my holiday trip because of the immense battery and the amazing camera. To me that says a lot about how much I like the G4, and the G5 just isn't, it's just not in that range. I will be, I mean, it's not a huge issue, but I'll be quite happy to go back to my Note 5 at this point, even though the Note 5 is almost a year-old device. So there you go. Possibly I'm being too hard. It is a good device. I'm sure if you've got one, you're probably very happy with it. So in some ways, I don't want to put you off if you're set on it being your next phone, which it may well be when it's this old. Being 4 months, being this old in the tech world, you might be able to pick up some bargains. Also, take a look at clove.co.uk. Thank you to them for sending me this phone. It's a good phone. It's just maybe not a great phone, I think, is probably the bottom line. So there you go. Please do let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. My name's Andy. I'll catch you all again soon.